Welcome to Hump Day, and what better way to celebrate Hump Day than with some absolute cheek-destroying lunges. So, both Strength and Power and Build and Tone will be working back rack lunges. The only difference between the two is that Build and Tone, you're going to be working your lunges from a 5.5-inch deficit, which allows us to create a greater stretch of the glute tissue and therefore stimulate similar or greater hypertrophy or muscle growth with less load. So we're going to be able to load those a little bit lighter. We're going to get some more volume in, and we're really going to focus on creating a pump. On the Strength and Power side, if you've been plateaued in your squat, one of the really great ways to break through a sticking point is unilateral work, but not like Bulgarian split squats or walking lunges. Those don't really make as much of a difference as we would like them to, although they're great supporting exercises. Whereas something like a back rack lunge that can be loaded really heavy is going to be more similar to the loading you see in those bilateral movements like squats, which is going to help elevate those. So with that comes the primary driver of today, which is go heavy. Lunges do not have to be a light exercise, so make sure you're loading them up appropriately to make them extremely challenging. The A weeks of the cycle, we will be doing all of our reps on one leg before switching. So think set of 8, then a set of 8 on the other side. If you need to rack the bar in between your sets, you are highly encouraged to do so, especially if you find that your heart rate is the limiting factor. Heart rate should not be the limiting factor when we're trying to train strength or muscle growth, right? So don't allow it to be rack the bar in between if you need to. In our B weeks, we'll be working through alternating sets of the lunges, which is going to allow us to accumulate more reps at a higher load because we're going to have a little bit of break in tension from side to side. This will really carry over nicely to our squats and to some overall leg endurance. With our bench press, we'll see the difference between Build and Tone and Strength and Power being that Build and Tone is going to have a paused bench press. With that, we're looking for that stretch again, right? That lowest range of motion on the bench is going to create the most muscle growth. And so we want to spend a little additional time in that range of motion. But when hitting your pause, if the bar is just sitting on the chest, we're losing the reason for the pause. We want to keep it just lightly touching the chest so we can maximize the stretch before locking that bar back out. Whereas our Strength and Power is going to be using low pin bench press, we want to set those pins up within an inch of the chest. Reason being, that's going to be likely the weakest position of your bench. And so by stopping there, what we're teaching you to do to create pressure and drive into the bar is create a ton of tension through our upper back and lats. Failure to do so is going to have that bar moving around as you start to press it, so it becomes a great teaching tool from the mechanics of the bench press. On top of that, when you lift a bar from a dead stop, let's say the bar weighs 225, you must provide more than 225 pounds of pressure into the bar to get it moving because there's something called inertia. And so we must overcome inertia and we must move the bar. This is going to really challenge what is traditionally a sticking point in people's bench press and allow us to drive that bad boy up as well. When we look at accessory work on this day, you will see only 2 to 3 sets prescribed, and it's going to be supersetted with an upper and a lower followed by a arm movement and abs. When we look at those primary accessory movements, if that's a term, basically you're going to see an RDL variation and then you're going to see an overhead pressing variation. 2 sets is enough, right? It's going to say 2 to 3. 2 sets is enough if one, you would identify yourself as a relatively strong person, which means you're going to be able to load that relatively heavy. And if you're willing to grind them damn sets out, if you're going to push really hard on your accessory work, then you're going to create enough of a stimulus without having to get that third set in. I would rather you work audaciously, disgustingly hard on 2 sets than work moderately hard on 3 sets. But if you know you're only going to work moderately hard on the first 2, then you might as well do the third one. Focus of core work on this day is going to be core endurance, the ability to withstand fatigue across a lot of contractions. So whereas we'll see some really heavy loaded core for our clusters on Monday, today is going to be all about endurance, so expect some high volume contractions there.